Why do you think Liverpool have regressed so far?
I think losing Mane is a big problem for them. What he did, buying Darwin Núñez to come in, big price tag, a lot of money. Could the money been invested elsewhere when they had like Bobby Firmino there as well? Could they have gone in midfield? The midfield's awful. Fabinho's regressed. He looks like he's about 35-year-old now. He's nowhere near anything. He just fouls everybody. Henderson's full of energy and likes gobbing off a lot and running into referee's face and trying to get people sent off and all that shit. And the young kid Elliott, he's just, he's a young kid, but City dominated him. You said it in the day. They're a bit of a long ball team, Liverpool. You know what I mean? They do like that long ball, that stretching ball across, and it catches a lot of teams out. It caught us out. But when you get onto it and you really get in and about them and you don't go gung-ho at them and don't let them get that long ball over the top, they don't really offer anything else. Last night's game, Chelsea-Liverpool, sent me to sleep. Do you know what I mean? I ended up going in the living room and watching Puss in Boots with my daughter because it was that shit. So, it is what it is. I'd rather watch a cat with boots and a sword. So that tells you everything about Liverpool.
Mate, it was a hard game to watch. It really was. And yeah, there's a long ball element. I do think Jurgen Klopp is massively to blame as well, though, because I understand that the fans defend him and say it's FSG. They haven't invested enough. And that would make sense if they were getting beat by City and beat by United and beat by Arsenal. And they have been this year, at times. They've won some. They've actually got quite a good record against the top six this year, to be fair. I think they're actually sitting top of that tree on 15 points, as it were. But it's more the problems outside of those big games. It's the problems when they're playing the smaller teams where they've dropped so many points. They've only got 13, 14 points away from home this year, which is a huge regression from where they normally are. They've got a very good home record, but everything about them looks off. And the amount of chances they concede due to their higher line is ridiculous. And they've got players out there like Trent, who is just being exposed as to being an absolutely bang average right back. World-class at crossing the ball, world-class at taking free kicks. And when the team was purring, when the team was firing on all cylinders, and his defensive attributes were being covered by other people, when the Genies and the Hendersons were there and or in their pomp, they were fine. Now there's some holes. They're being exposed. Now, you may not necessarily blame Klopp for that, but the fact that he doesn't know how to adjust his system to play and get results when he hasn't got the perfect squad, it's a massive flaw in his game, a massive flaw in his ability as a manager. Ten Hag spoke about this in his press conference yesterday and essentially said, we're not playing my style of football yet. There's a process to get in there, but we have to win in the meantime. So we have to play more pragmatically, because if we tried against certain teams to play possession-based football with the personnel we've got outside of some of the new signings, because we don't have the technical... I saw Culture Can do a video saying probably only Lisandro Martinez is on par with the majority of your players technically on the ball when you look at our squad versus yours. And he's right to a degree. Casemiro would have a good chance of getting into the team, but technical ability on the ball as passers, yours outweigh Manchester United's. But our manager realizes, well, to be able to compete and try and win trophies while we're developing, you got to adapt your game. And that, for me, is the issue with Jurgen Klopp. He doesn't want to adapt, and he leaves his team so wide open. It's unbelievable, Steve. It's almost embarrassing to watch a manager of his caliber not make adjustments to fix holes and problems in his team. It's crazy to me. It's crazy.
Yeah, he did look. There's certain players that don't look at it. I mean, Van Dijk, he thinks in his brain he's a Rolls Royce, but this season he's not been at it. That injury took a lot out of him. With City, that it's like they brought Rodri in a few years ago. Fernandinho was number one. They brought him in and the understanding that let him bed in because Fernandinho's getting to the age where we need to swap him. The season before last season, Fernandinho was number two and Rodri took over, started to play. Fernandinho sort of came in, bit part role, then we faded him out. They've still got James Milner running around, Henderson running around. They've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita. None of them players should be at Liverpool Football Club. When you get to Champions League finals and you're going for quads and all that shit, you need to freshen it up. They didn't have no backup plan. They got the young kid who's been coming in this season, Bakacic, whatever he's called, looks okay. But the fans are demanding Bellingham. We want Bellingham. We want Bellingham. That's fine, but Bellingham's not the answer to the problem. You can get Jude Bellingham for 130 million. That's probably the only signing you make. And then is he going to make you much better? He'll make you better, but it's the rest of the team that lets them down. I just think they're about 5 or 6 players off competing back for a title again. I believe that Jurgen's got to work wonders in that transfer market. I know there's a lot of free transfers knocking about in the summer. Maybe you get rid of some of the deadwood, bring some of the frees in. I don't know, but the Liverpool fans just seem to be quiet at the minute. You know, I've dealt with Liverpool fans for the last 5 years. They're not quiet. This season, they've all gone. But, you know, Jurgen, they built him up on a pedestal, so now it goes wrong. They're looking at him for answers, and he stood there at the side of the pitch. He ain't got no answers. Can't hear you, Terry.
Sorry, I was on mute. I coughed. I was on mute. The thing is this. We all know Fergie's a better manager than him. But in the last 3 or 4 seasons that Fergie was managing Man United, he had an aging core, Rio and Scholes and Ryan Giggs. And we were not buying how we should have been for a club of our size in the market. The manager was covering it up with the no value in the market nonsense because there wasn't the cash at the time until the new TV deal money came through in 2014. United were struggling to keep up with the spending of Chelsea and Man City. But Fergie found a way of getting title-winning form out of the squad that he had. And we had a good squad, a very, very good squad. And yes, we had Van Persie, but he was a £20 million bargain buy. If you would have gone and bought a 21-year-old at Van Persie's level back then, we couldn't afford to. Why you landed players like Aguero over us? We just weren't prepared to pay that kind of money because the Glazers didn't freeze it up. But Fergie's ability as a manager enabled him to still win Premier League titles when we never replaced Ronaldo. We still haven't replaced Ronaldo now, and it's 2023. We never went out and bought.
We did place Aguero for 2 years, but we still won the league both seasons.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Because you've got a manager that says, right, I can adjust and I can adapt. The way you got a couple of years ago, it was Gundogan scoring all the goals. The season after that, it was Bernardo Silva scoring loads of goals because you would adjust things and make changes. That is what legendary managers are able to do. And Jurgen Klopp is an echelon below that. He's quality. He's world class. But he's not that legendary status because he plays one way or the highway. It doesn't mean Pep and Fergie didn't make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But how long do Pep and Fergie continue to make mistakes? There's no way Pep would continue with a system that was being exposed in the way in which Liverpool's is. He'd make adjustments in personnel. He'd change shape. He'd change formation. He'd find a way that works to win, and he'd stick with it. And that's the biggest weakness they've got right now. Forget Henderson being too old and Milner being too old. It's their manager not adjusting. It's crazy to me that more
Liverpool... They had no answer. They had no answer. They went 1-0 up. They had no answer for John Stones in midfield. They couldn't understand how John Stones... You watch some of the play. John Stones was in the middle of them all. He was knocking it left, right. He was on the edge of their box playing 1-2s. Alvarez was in and around Canate and Van Dijk. They couldn't keep in control of him. He was dropping deep. He was dragging Van Dijk deep. And then when we broke... and Mahrez broke down, De Bruyne scored, Van Dijk was miles away because he'd gone following Alvarez thinking this is where the ball's coming. Alvarez ended up laying it out wide and stuff like that. And I think Liverpool will bounce back, I do, but this is a very, very important time for Liverpool, for FSG and Jurgen Klopp. He cannot afford now to get any signings wrong, in my opinion. The money is tight there. It has to be spent wisely. If he drops a bollock on a 50, 60 million pound player, and it doesn't work, then that's massive to them. They can't fall back on anybody else, and I think he's got to get it right. I believe Darwin Núñez has got to be trusted more next season. I think he's got to look. We're starting you. You're the main man up front. You've got to start relaxing in front of goal and stop snatching it and get involved because there's definitely a player in there. The chances he gets is not normal. If he was at City, I think the chances he gets, he'd put them away. But at Liverpool, he just seems to be snatching them all the time. Mo Salah needs to pull his finger out. I'm sorry. Been a great player, but this season he's not been at the races. He needs to pull it out. And then you've got young Gakpo that, he's got all the talent in the world, but he's saying, you've got to deliver now. There's nowhere to hide.
No, when you're at Liverpool, there is no place to hide. There's always got to be those high expectations, especially with what they've done. And, the so-called, as I said earlier, Pep Klopp era looks like it's coming to an end. They might bounce back next year. But for me, it's never been a Pep Klopp era. The fact that there are Liverpool fans online begging for you to win the league over Arsenal tells me you're not even proper rivals, because there's no way when Man United went through the Arsenal United era, the Arsenal Newcastle era, the United Chelsea era, the United City era, just towards the end of Fergie, there's no way we wanted our rivals to win the league. The people that we were our main competitors. These guys are just...
There's never been a problem with City and Liverpool. Obviously, it's Man United and Liverpool has been the one. The amount of times over the years I've wanted Liverpool to beat Man United, it's been unbelievable. It's only recent times when we've been challenging for the title and you're fighting with Liverpool, a very, very good Liverpool, by the way, a relentless Liverpool, that the rivalry is born out of respect. It's not born out of hatred. There's no real hatred there. So I think the rivalry you've seen from Man City and Liverpool the last 5 years has been out of respect, because I respect Jurgen Klopp and his Liverpool team, and whether they say it or not, Jurgen Klopp and his Liverpool team respect Pep Guardiola and us. And I think without Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, Liverpool don't get to them heights. But without Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool putting pressure on us, we don't get to them heights. So I don't think it's your traditional rivalry. I do think it's getting nasty now because of the coach smashing and little isolated incidents. I do think that's getting a bit mad. But, you know, it is what it is. As rivalries come, if Manchester City's not been involved in title races for 30 years, so it's not like we've said, oh, we're going up against Liverpool again like we did in the 60s or the 70s. It just never happened. So this is a new rivalry, but it's a respectful one at the minute. On the pitch, I think both teams respect each other. But, you know, it is what it is.
No, I get that. In terms of it took a new twist this weekend after this little incident we're going to play here, when Pep Guardiola was celebrating and with Simicast there. A lot of the Liverpool fans very, very unhappy with what he did, stating it was over the top, it was disrespectful. A lot of Liverpool legends attacking Pep for this. Like, do you think Pep did much wrong? And if not, why are Liverpool fans so pressed about it?
To be honest, City's just scored as the subs are walking through his technical area. He shouldn't have done it. For me, it's a bit muggy. You know what I mean? You've just scored. Their players are walking through. Leave them alone. Celebrate with your son in the stand. Walk to the other side of your technical box. Celebrate, whatever. If it happened to me and United had scored and my players were walking across Ten Hag's box and Ten Hag had done the same to our guys, you'd be fuming. So I do get it. If I was playing and I walked across the dugout and he tried to do that to me, I'd just tell him to fuck off. Simple as that. So listen, you know, I'll defend Pep Guardiola till the cows come home. But for me, yeah, it was a bit muggy, man. There's no need. I get the guy was there. You don't want an opinion off a sub. His team's just conceded a goal. He's not going to say, yeah, Pep, well done, what a goal. He's going to say, he's just going to do what he did. One of them blanked him, one shook his hand. It was a bit muggy. I think he just got caught up in the moment. He shouldn't have done it. And if it had happened to me, I'd have told him to sling it.
I get that. I kind of get why he did it. Like, you guys needed to win. I think you won emphatically. It probably was a little... It reminded me a little bit of it. Who was the player he had the spat with on the pitch? I want to say it was Redmond. Do you remember when the way he was talking to Redmond on the pitch?
He was telling him why he was playing that way, because he's a good player, saying he should attack. He was defensive and like time wasting and that. And I think Redmond said, I'm told to play like that. So I think Pep gets like that. He's involved in it.
I agree. And I don't even think sometimes I don't think Pep means it disrespectfully either. I think he just gets caught in a moment. You reflect.
But if Klopp had done that to us, we'd have been fuming.
Oh, of course you would. You've
got to take your Man City glasses off, which I try and do, and say, yeah, Pep, it was a bit muggy. You know what I mean? Celebrating away from him. If they're coming across your technical box, it probably hurts them more if you're sliding on your knees and not saying out to him. You know what I mean? Because you're thinking, look at this bastard there sliding about and just go and get your head down in the dugout. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it anyway. I just think he was a bit muggy with it, and he shouldn't have done it, really.
No, I get that. The thing about it is this, though. The problem is with football fans is that we don't ever self-police. So you've been very fair, I think, with the way you broke it down. Klopp has done a lot of things when he's celebrated. He hasn't done that, but he's done a lot of things that infuriate people. The man run on the pitch during a goal celebration, which is, I believe, is a red card offence for a manager to do, to come onto the football pitch in that scenario. I know sometimes they come on when there's a big fight to break things up, but there's a reason for that. That would wind a lot of people up. He did that in a Merseyside derby and Liverpool fans love him for it. And the problem is with football fans is we condemn, everyone condemns. The media always condemns Bruno for diving, but majority were very quiet when it was Harry Kane. Most fans hate it when they concede a penalty through diving, but when they get one, they celebrate the goal irrespective. That is my issue with football fans. We're so one-track minded. I'll get a lot of heat this year online because I've called out a lot of lazy punditry towards Arsenal. And my reason for calling it out is because I've got an issue with it. We pay for punditry, essentially. You pay, your TV, your subscriptions. And part of it is to listen to what the professionals have got to say because they have an insight to football that you don't get through just watching it. They have an insight internal. They've been there. And I don't like hearing people play down Man City because you've got a lot of money. That doesn't guarantee success. United are proof of that in the last decade. I don't like so I don't kind of like lazy punditry, and I don't like hypocritical takes where you celebrate it when your team does it, but you cry about it in the other direction. For me, I never change my stance on these things. So I totally get where you're coming from.